Good morning to you. You. Good morning to you. Good morning, good morning. Won't you share with a friend or two? Good morning to you. You. Good morning, good morning to you. You. Good good morning to you. And many more, and many more, and many more. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Daring Dialogues. I'm your host today, Shantae Charles. I want to take some time to say thank you. Thank you to those of you who have been watching. Thank you to those of you who have been sharing. Thank you to those of you who have been tuning in. Thank you to those of you who have been moving with us from platform to platform to platform, allowing us to get it right, allowing us to try new things. Um, I feel almost like we've been in a underground railroad, running from station to station, trying to stay safe. I really do feel like that because we've been moving from different platforms just to keep going, to keep reading, to keep talking, to keep sharing. And so I do want to thank people who have followed us from different platforms to stay informed and to stay in tune with what we have been doing. I sincerely thank you for that. I also want to thank the people that have let me know that they enjoy the good morning song and that they sing along and they clap along when it comes on. And when I first started doing it, I was like, I want to just do something that's a little bit different to personally greet people when they come into the platform. Obviously, if we do a night show, we change the song up. But that song is really for you. It is to um, hope and wish you a good day, a good morning. And the fact that sometimes we don't get people in our life even doing the basics like saying good morning, even if we are in our professional capacity. I remember one school that I worked at. I would come in every day. Most of the staff at the school were pre civil rights teachers, and most of them held bias against Black people. I was like maybe only the second other Black employee in the whole school, like when it came to teachers. And so I remember coming into the building and teachers walking past me like they didn't see me, like walking past me and like acting like they're looking through me. And I would say good morning to these people and they would say nothing back. So I get it. I understand that there are spaces and places where you're not getting that greeting in the morning. You're not getting somebody looking at you with enjoyment or pleasure or thankful that you're in that space. There are some places where people have coworkers that never speak, even though they work right alongside you. So that is one of the reasons why I sing my good morning song, because I want you to hear good morning from someone today. I want you to know that there's somebody out there that is welcoming your presence. There's someone out here that's glad that you're here, that's glad that you are alive, that's glad that you made it to another day. All right. So I'm gonna, since people told me they love the song and they sing and clap along, I will continue to sing the good morning song when I come on. All right. Let's get into a bit of some news this morning. If you were listening to our show on yesterday, we start talking about this idea of the Negro card or the Negro wake up call. And we said on yesterday that people are getting that call. People are finding out, especially here in the United States, um, what it's like or what it has been like to be a marginalized group because of the changes in policies and laws and executive orders that are coming down. So many people now are being disenfranchised. They're being disenfranchised from their homes, their farms, their jobs, life security, right? And then, of course, we have this bill on the table that is going to unfortunately disenfranchise more people when it comes to food security and when it comes to health security. And one of the things that we talked about or kind of alluded to yesterday is the fact that the universe is taking care of some things. The universe is handing out some results, right? And so I wanted to take a look at something that happened, I believe, yesterday as we were having that conversation. And if you have not heard, I'm quite sure most of you have probably heard by now, the Nottoway Resort, the Nottoway Resort Plantation, a massive mansion in Louisiana, burned all the way down. I want to go to the news report of it first, and then I want to read you what two people who are in the, I would say, in the social justice space, and also one journalist had to say about this, because I think that what they're saying is important. So I want to make sure that I put it out a little bit further. Nottoway Plantation, Nottoway, excuse me, Plantation, built 1859. So it was built on in the tail end of enslavement. Even they, in building it in 1859, probably did not know or did not perceive or did not think that enslavement would be ending in a few short years after they built this. So just keep that in mind. They likely built it thinking that enslavement was going to go on into perpetuity. Built in 1859, it was the largest remaining antebellum home along the Great River Road in Louisiana. A fire in the rear wing of the plantation started this afternoon. So that was yesterday while we were having that conversation. And it had been contained at first. An hour ago, winds reignited the embers and the fire spread throughout the main house. Firefighters have confirmed that the fire can no longer be contained. And I want to show you some images of this plantation. Somebody said it's very reminiscent and it reminded them of the White House. I want to say it almost looks like partially that scene in Sinners. All right, now I want to read you what two people said that have been in the justice space. Dr. Stacy Patton, she is a journalist and a professor at Howard University, had this to say. Remember, this is Get Free Friday. And I think the universe is trying to help us get free of some things. She says this: celebrate the burning. Let the flames take it all. Because you cannot romance out of horrors and expect the ghosts to stay quiet forever. Praise the blaze like a cleansing storm. Let every ember sing a requiem for the enslaved who were intimately assaulted, whipped, mutilated, bred like livestock, sold off like furniture, and unalived. Let the flames devour the lie of Southern charms. What kind of mind turns a death camp, a torture site, and generational trauma incubators into wedding venues and luxury resorts. Let's get married here. What kind of spiritual rot does it take to look at a plantation and see ambiance instead of atrocity? What kind of people can sleep peacefully in rooms where enslaved women were intimately assaulted and call it bed and breakfast? How can they twirl on the floor, sip champagne, pose for pics with their bouquets in front of slave quarters and call it vintage? It is sadistic cosplay. It's parasitic nostalgia dressed up as rustic elegance. It is a spiritual sickness. You don't look at Auschwitz and think, what a perfect place for a brunch bouquet and some mood lighting for our bridal photos. But plantations, they will put on pastels, clutch their pearls, and fantasize about a gone with the wind fantasy. Call it what it is, a fetish. It's the it's the eroticization of dominance, a pathological comfort with black pain and pleasure in proximity to past power. They want to own the ruins, dance on the graves, and call it joy and love. Let them all burn. Let the flames lick the walls and crawl up every grand staircase and swallow every chandelier that was bought with blood, sweat, and tears. Burn it all for release and for the truth, for the ancestors screaming from the floorboards who never got justice, and the people sobbing over the charred remains and ashes choke on their salty tears and delusions of grandeur. Activist Desiree Stevens said this: may they all burn, not just in flame, but in memory, in legacy, in every textbook still lying to our children, in every wedding album staged on the blood-soaked steps, throughout every cotton field family picture taken. Let me tell you something. Nawway Plantation wasn't a historical resort. It was an open-air prison, a site of terror, a monument to white wealth accumulated through the breaking of black bodies and spirits. Enslaved Africans were trained into submission, not born that way. An amenable enslaved person is a lie. It is a tool, a trick of survival, a trauma response mistaken for consent. There was no such thing as a happy enslaved person. That is plantation propaganda. They were beaten, starved, bred like cattle, yet still they fought for their dignity. They plotted. Some rebelled. They taught their babies freedom songs in hushed tones, in hushed harbors, even while forcing a smile in the face of unimaginable horror. And yet here we are, watching people mourn a building, not the lives lost in it, not the families lost to it, not the screams absorbed into its walls, but the architecture, mourning the drapes, mourning the grandeur. Ask yourself why. I got to give it to these black women, boy. The sisters, the sisters are writing on today. So on this Get Free Friday, take a page from history and look at your life and think about, what are the things that I need to just let burn? Some things just need to burn. And we said that yesterday. We said, hey, listen, if white people want to burn everything down because they would rather it burn down than allow for equality to happen in this country, who are we to stop them? But when we look up from the embers, guess who's still going to be here? Guess who has learned how to survive the fires and the trauma and the horror that has been perpetuated by our country? We have. Now, survival is not the only mode we want to be in, but if survival is the mode that this country wants to place people in, we've learned how to survive. All right. Let's get into our readings for today. I think last time we read from the nutrition book. Yes. And I'm only going to just give you the survey of the hamster wheel of diet culture. So you can be thinking about um, surveying your diet. So we'll do that. But then we're going to spend our time today in talking about the first financial tool, a budget. So if you're here with us on today, Get Free Fridays have been about health and wealth. We have two books that we've been reading from. One is Moving Beyond Broke by Dasha Kennedy, and the other is Live Nourished by Shanna Spencer. So in Live Nourished, let's take a look at this diet culture survey here. It says check in. What will actually make you feel better? A, shedding pounds however you can, or B, figuring out a way to add more nutrients and to eat consistently in a specific way to nourish your individual body. I think when it comes to our health, everybody has to first of all decide, what is your end goal? Do I want to look leaner? Do I want to eat cleaner? Do I want to feel healthier and better? Am I looking for an aesthetic? I think people have different goals when it comes to their diet. For me, it's all about, I need to make sure that I'm healthy internally. I can work on aesthetics, but my first goal is what I'm eating, is what I'm nourishing my body, actually fueling my body to be healthy in the future. Why? Because as we see what's about to happen with our healthcare and our health systems in the United States, as we see regulations being rolled back to keep us safe, I want to do whatever I can to stay away from doctors and having to go to hospitals at this point, because it's about to get really interesting with all of these things being rolled back. So as much as I can, be in good health and not have to wind up in someone's hospital, not have to be visiting the doctor unnecessarily, I want to do that. So that is my health goal. My health goal is stay in good health, stay in shape, no visits to the doctors that are not absolutely required, like your annual checkup or something like that. But no hospital visits. That's my baseline. She says here, in my practice, I've had to ask a lot of clients the above question. It's not surprising, as we are told that thinness is healthy no matter what, and that we should do everything in our power to get to the virtuous status of health. This means entering the never-ending hamster wheel of dieting. Before we dissect the wheel, take out a pen and put a check mark next to each of the following diets you have tried. So she is about to give us, and I just want you to use your fingers if you've ever tried this. She's about to give us 6, 12, 20 diets. Okay? 20 actual name diets. If you've heard of any, just note that mentally. But if you've actually tried it, I want you to put up a finger for every diet that she names and see how many of them you've actually tried. Okay? First one, cigarette diet. Now, this is one I've heard of, but I've never tried. Grapefruit diet. Anybody tried that? The grapefruit diet? Here's another one have not tried, but I've heard of. Hollywood diet. Okay, here's another one. I think this one is probably Gen X has probably tried this, but I've never tried it, but I definitely knew about it. Slim Fast. Anybody ever tried Slim Fast? Okay, another popular one, Weight Watchers. I had a couple of relatives that did the Weight Watchers with the pre-ordered packaged meals. Weight Watchers. Here's another popular one, Jenny Craig. Very, very popular in the 80s and into the 90s. Cookie Diet. Liquid Diet. Scarsdale Diet. I have heard of it vaguely, but I've never knew anybody that actually tried it. Scarsdale Diet. Low Fat Foods. Low Fat Foods. All right, this is another one I've heard of, these next two. I knew somebody that tried both. Cabbage Soup Diet. Cabbage Soup Diet. Zone Diet. The Zone Diet. Here's another one. Recently heard of this one. Blood Type Diet. Special K Diet. Okay, and I think she's getting to some more recent ones now. Subway Diet, where you're only eating Subway. Paleo Diet. Atkins Diet. I've heard of people actually passing away from doing that one. Atkins Diet. The next one I've seen a lot of Black people try this diet. Is actually was intended for people with epilepsy, so I couldn't understand why we were putting ourselves on this diet. But anyway, keto diet. Keto diet. South Beach diet, another very popular one. And last one, Optavia. Optavia. Now, think about it. How many of these did you check off? I didn't check off any because I've never participated in dieting culture. I'm willing to guess that not only did you maybe check off one, but you might have checked off multiple options. Ones listed are just some of the more popular diets through the years, ranging from the 1920s to the present. So that's probably why I didn't know some of these, right? We've already covered the reasons why diets don't usually work. However, there is also a capitalist reason they don't usually work. Let's start by following the money. In 2021, the weight loss industry in the United States was reportedly worth over $72.6 billion, a sum that's only expected to grow. That is a ton of money to be made in the industry, and its unsustainability is the key to a profit. Because there is more money to be made with a repeat customer who will keep coming back and spending money in order to alleviate a problem. We know how diet culture works. One, society creates a problem to fix, one that is rooted in fat phobia and really has nothing to do at all with health. Two, the diet industry decides to solve the problem with costly weight loss memberships, apps, pills, and books on how to restrict your diet and overexercise. Three, the options presented to solve this problem are not sustainable for individuals. This is intentional because if they were, then the industry would burn itself out and there would be no more money to be made. And four, the individual goes off the diet due to unrealistic expectations and impossible goals. Five, the individual begins to feel shame and guilt as if they did something wrong. Six, the individual decides to restart or try a new diet. Seven, repeat forever. It is a hamster wheel that's hard to get off. And I know people like this. I know a couple of people who every time I look up, and it's usually Black women, but every time I look up, they're trying a new diet. They're trying a new diet or a new product or a multi-level marketing diet company, and they're losing weight, right? And they're trying to get you to buy their product, and you want to support them, but you also know this is likely a scam, right? I'd rather just send you an offering, give you a gift, than support something that I know that maybe 90 days later you probably won't be doing it, or you will have met your your weight goal, gotten off of the product, no longer selling it, and then we'll look up another 90 days and you'll be at another diet company trying to sell your friend's products. No offense, but we've seen it, right? We've seen it. And I'm not sure who this is for happy birthday, but happy birthday to everyone whose birthday it is today. All right. So I want you to be thinking about that. If you have been a part of the diet culture, do you find what she just said to be true? Do you find that people are sort of on a hamster wheel and it feels like they can't get off? If you've ever been a part of diet culture, I want to hear from you about that. How has it been? Do you feel like you've ever been successful on a diet? Have you been able to lose the weight and keep the weight off? I think it's very interesting that you're coming on to a space that's talking about reading, trying to draw attention to your friend. And I've already said happy birthday, and you are still going. Tell us you can't read the room without telling us you can't read the room. All right, we're moving to the next book, Moving Beyond Broke, The Power of Perseverance in Personal Finance. Your first financial tool, a budget. The writer says, excuse me, it's possible my dad had budgeted some cash to treat his children to the ice cream truck whenever he pleased. But knowing what I do now about my parents' financial situation back then, it's unlikely. The more probable truth is that he was spending from the heart because he wanted to give his children joy on a summer afternoon. That was my dad. Spend it today, figure the rest out tomorrow. As a parent myself, I get it. There's so much beauty in wanting to make your children happy during tough times. But it's also confusing for your child to witness, especially a child who is curious about money, when spending that $8 on ice cream might meant that he might have to cut corners on something else later. Now, I don't know. Maybe I don't know if I don't want to say that everybody might have noticed this, but if you were a child and you watched your parents spend money, right, on big ticket items, but then when it came to like necessities, they didn't have the money for it. Did that ever puzzle you? Because I think that's what she's getting at here. That there were times when she would see her parents, like she said, buy something like ice cream, but then when it came to more important bills, they fell short or they didn't have the money for it. Anybody else had that experience? You can put some hearts on the screen or click on the 100. I know I did. I know there were times when I would be like, hmm, if my parent buys me this, are we not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z later? Like, I agree with her. I think I started noticing that as a young child. And it was almost like you're hesitant to take the frivolous thing from your parent, knowing that somewhere down the line they were going to be saying that they couldn't afford something or they were trying to scrape up the money for something. I know that was true in my household. Part of that was because um, I had, I was raised in a single parent family, and so I don't know. I did feel that, like, I did notice that if I got this special item, it was almost like a hesitation to take the special item because I knew that sooner or later we were going to need that money. So to me, it was a conscious awareness of the importance of having money for things like the roof over your head, the lights, the water, right? Um, I felt that consciousness. I started working at 13 to help pay for bills. Kind of sort of like what our government wants to do, except they want to do it with children, I think, as young as 10, and they want to put in bills that children can work overnight. Yeah. As a child, as a person who started out working at 13 as a child, I absolutely would have a problem with that. If I lived in a state that was like, yeah, let's get your 10-year-old out there working and we'll even give them permission to work overnight in a factory, in a warehouse. Absolutely would have a problem with that. You should too. That's a whole other story. I'm not judging my father, she said, for buying us ice cream when times were tough. Actually, that gesture captures one of the most important parts of budgeting that I encourage everyone to do. Make room in your budget to spend on things that make you feel good, whether it's ice cream for your children, a monthly salon visit, dinner with friends, even when money is tight, especially when money is tight. Doing this will keep you motivated to stick to budgeting and let you spend in a way that won't harm your larger financial goals. It also debunks one of the biggest myths about budgeting that stops most people from ever getting started, that budgeting is restrictive. The first time I heard the word budget, it felt like a punishment because it seemed so limiting. Yet the more I learned about budgeting, I understood that it is one of the most liberating financial tools you can use. Let me say it again. Your budget is not a punishment for overspending. It's the foundation for creating the life you want by spending money intentionally in service of your goals and aligned with your values. Creating a budget puts you in full control, which is especially important when your income is limited. We don't always have control over how much money we make, but we do have control over how we spend the money we earn. Even on a very limited income, a budget allows you to set aside at least some money for small luxuries. Yes, you can have your double latte with extra whip, save for bigger splurges over time, like holidays and trips, and eventually reach your most audacious financial goals, like buying your first home or traveling the world for a year. Um, I think this is very important to note that even in a budget, and she'll probably get to this later in the chapter, but even in the budget, you want to have not just setting aside money for luxury items, right? But you also want to set aside money for life happens. I have a part of my banking account that we put money into for life happens. And let me tell you, last year, that was so helpful because life was happening and happening and happening and happening. It started with our um, our AC and heat going out. That was a big life happens. If you've never had to replace AC and heat, an entire system in your home, be very glad. Be very glad. It will run you anywhere between 7,000 to about $15,000 depending on the system that you get. That is not something that you want to be like, oh, I can't get AC and heat. But again, having the Life Happens account helped us to take care of it. Then what else happened? Our refrigerator decided that it wanted to act up. Life happens. We had a Life Happens account for that. Then our sink decided it wanted to go out on us and the um, trash compactor. Huh, life happens. Um, and what was the, oh, and this was the funny one that happened. Our bed broke down. Yeah, we're not going to talk about why it broke down, but the whole frame broke. Yeah, the whole frame broke. And so we had to get another bed. Life happens. And so I really appreciate her talking about this, that it is a liberating financial tool. It's not just about punishing yourself. And it's not just about, you know, looking at it as, oh, I'm overspending, so I need to restrict myself. But it really is about putting safeguards in so that you're not looking crazy when life happens. So I tell people, hey, maybe you're not saving for luxuries. Maybe you've got luxuries covered, or maybe you're just like, I don't really need to travel. I don't really do all these things, right? But you still want to budget for life happening. Okay, so keep that in mind. She says, if my parents had budgeted, my dad would have known that on some weeks his dollars would have served him better. If he'd put them towards saving for a rainy day, other weeks there was enough cash to put towards treats for children. And once they budgeted long enough, they probably would have had enough control over their finances to have a regular flow of cash for spontaneous spending, or possibly a better understanding of exactly where they stood financially. They wouldn't have had to lose as many precious dollars to high interest payments. Maybe they could have even saved and invested some, but they did their best with what they had and what they knew. And in their own way, they did teach me how powerful intentional spending can be. My mom has always said you have to work with what you've got. That's exactly what we're doing when we budget. We're making the money we have work for us in a way that moves us toward our financial goals. I know it can seem ridiculous to even think about budgeting when your income is low, but one thing you'll quickly realize about money management is that the habits we create around the earned income we have access to, both now and in the future, are the biggest contributor to our success. Our mindset matters as much and much more than how much we have in the bank at any given time. So let's wrap our minds around budgeting. I like to think of finances as laying the foundation of a house. Before you can build your dream house, you first have to make sure the foundation you build your house on is solid. The key to having a sufficient foundation is not to allow your total monthly expenses to exceed your monthly income. And I get it. That's easier said than done. We'll talk more about that throughout this book. For now, it helps to know that your budget is the support system for every other floor or room you want to add to your financial house. Before you decide if you want to save, invest, take a vacation, or buy a new outfit, your budget must be strong enough to carry the weight of new expenses. If your expenses start to exceed your income, the foundation, your budget becomes weak and can put the entire house at risk of crumbling. So when we come back on next week, hopefully, we're going to talk about building your budget blueprint. What do you need to include in your budget? What do you need to factor into your budget? How can you figure out what your annual expenses are going to be? And how can you fact check your blueprint? All right. I think this is going to be helpful, especially for people who are now finding themselves in different financial situations and statuses. People who are taking severance pay right now, you're going to need a budget. You might have been used to spending a certain amount. You might have to reconfigure your budget. If you have been let go or you've had to resign recently, you've got some figuring out to do when it comes to saving and investing and shifting your money so that you can pivot at this important time. All right. This has been my reading for today. I want to thank you for your time and your attention. We're going to turn to our talkback time now. Pastor Ben, if you're still here, let me know in the comments. I'm going to send you the link to. All right, I think I've done it correctly this time. You should get the correct link. All right. All right, I just sent you the link. I think I did it correctly this time. So hopefully you won't have to do it multiple times. Let's see if I did it right. While we are waiting for Pastor Ben to come in, I do not. While we're waiting for Pastor Ben to come in, it's saying that you can't join. Oh my goodness. 1 second. Okay, I sent it the other way. Try that one. Now, when I sent it that way last time, it wouldn't let you join. Then I sent it the other way, it let you join. Now it's back to not letting you join. Um, while we're waiting for Pastor Ben to come in, let me read this quick devotional to you. Fannie Lou Hamer, civil rights activist, said this: enough is enough. Knowing when to say when. Those are her words. All right. Pastor Ben, we're waiting for you to come on screen. I don't see you on screen yet. There you go. All right. Can you hear us? Can you see us? Can you hear us?
I can hear and see, but you're frozen.
Am,
I can
am I
see you
still frozen?
and hear you.
Am I still frozen?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
All right.
Okay.
What do you think about today's topics? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know how much more of a direct message we can get, America. I don't think America believes in direct messages.
All time. Now, what was, oh, now the diet thing. I've
Mm-hmm.
heard of a lot of those diets, but like you, I've never dieted.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had to, or even needed to think about dieting. The only time I needed to lose weight, as I said, when I was on the wrestling team and I was wrestling at a certain weight class. But that really wasn't a diet. That was doing practice. I'm sweating. I'm losing a certain amount of weight. I'm
Mhm.
just careful with what I eat and when I eat it. The time of day that I eat it.
Mhm.
That was basically it. So that's how the weight came off. So this starving yourself, I can't think but help that damages your body because your body needs food.
Mhm. Yeah,
It needs food.
I think that I had always been a smaller person. Like I had always been rail thin. I'm definitely no longer rail thin.
I saw
Um
some of the pictures.
I'm no longer rail thin. I mean, I used to be so skinny that if I turned sideways, I would disappear. That's how skinny I used to be. When I got married, I'm 5'9". When I got married, I was 120 pounds. When I came to college, I was 5'9", 105 pounds. I was definitely malnourished. um, I came from the hood. I came from a very um even though we lived rural, we didn't have a whole lot of grocery stores near us. And so a lot of our reliance was maybe grandma's garden, for some fresh veggies and fruit. We had a fruit stand, a vegetable stand in our community, but a lot of what we ate came out of the corner store. So it was a lot of junk food. It was a lot of potato chips and cookies and donuts. There was some cooked food, right? Some cooked meats. My family had a restaurant, so we ate there. Um, but it wasn't like a whole diet of fresh goods all the time. And so when I got to college, I was pretty malnourished, I would say. Um, and then on top of that, I didn't know how to cook. So that was the other piece. And so I had friends that would cook and they would basically say, You bring the ice, you bring the paper plates, you bring the utensils." And they were just like, "Girl, we need to feed you, okay? Because you are you're a smart girl, but you look malnourished." So that that was my college experience. They were like, "This girl looks like, the feed the children ad." But again, I was a product of my environment and the lack of access to certain things. And so when I see now we have terminology for it, right? We call it food deserts or food apartheid. But that wasn't the language for what I experienced growing up. Now I know what it is. Now I know what it was. Um, and so when I think about dieting culture, I didn't really have partake in it because I was a fairly thin person already. And I already knew that I was unhealthy and I needed to eat better. Like after I got married, of course, I began to do better things for my body. I started gaining weight. I was dancing about 5 times a week. I was leading dance teams and stuff like that. So I was definitely more in shape, definitely than I am right now. And um, now I'm dealing with perimenopause, which is a hormonal issue. And it can cause you to gain weight or your weight to fluctuate. So now I am gaining weight. I like some of the weight that I have on, but I do know that some of it is attributed to perimenopause. So now I'm having to build out a plan with a nutritionist, with my doctor, to say how can we manage these things hormonally so that we can get you to a space of, improving your weight. So I'm not unhealthy, but I do recognize that I have picked up weight because of my hormones. And so for me, I've not looked at my body to be like bashing myself or have self images. It's like, no, I know that this is the issue. I know that this is what I have to work through, and I know that this is what I have to improve. So when I see people bashing women or men for their body shape or their body type, my thing is, you don't know what that person's health condition is like. I had one friend that was dealing with a disease where he couldn't gain weight, and he needed to gain weight. He's no longer here. Rest in peace to him. So you don't know what's the underlying factors behind someone's body type or their weight. So I never try to get into a space to look at somebody and say, oh, they're big or they're small because of X, Y, and Z. Unless I have the data, unless I know what is going on with that person, that's not my judgment to make. And even if I do know what's going on with that person, it's still not my judgment to make. Pawan Saini says, do you get negative comments and how do you deal with them? On social media platforms, I get negative comments all the time. I get people sometimes coming in here talking about my lips. Some people come in here talking about my teeth. And again, if you don't know what people's situation is behind how they look, you might not want to have anything to say about people's appearance because you don't know what's going on with them. But how do I deal with it? I have a pretty good, healthy self perception, and I know my own body, and I know my own reasons for why things are the way they are. So I don't get bothered by what someone tries to say about me online. Because the reality is, most of these people saying stuff online, they would never say it to your face. They wouldn't. They wouldn't. All right, go ahead. I didn't want to.
To you, not with that.
Yeah.
Got a gland problem. Surgery. There it was. They corrected the gland. She lost the weight. She didn't have to diet or anything. It was just her body adjusted and she started losing the weight. She's not skinny. I mean, it just brought her back to her normal weight size. There was something going on with her glands that was the problem. So you don't know a person's situation. You don't know why their body type is the way it is, which goes back to what you were saying. Now, I want to talk about this because I'm going to go off the health thing a little bit
Hmm.
because it relates to not having the proper information. What we're going to talk about Shabil Sanders here.
Okay.
There was a guy, there are a lot of positive things that people are saying about him, and then one guy in the comment section says something about quick fast release, and he's been sacked such an X amount of times. I'm like, okay, there's this thing in football called an offensive line. They protect the quarterback, which
Hmm.
means give him time.
Hmm.
See,
To
I
release the
say
ball,
yeah, to
right?
release the ball, to read the field, and release the ball. I say, but then look at it like this: with this line not doing that very well, all
Hmm.
the yards and touchdowns that he still ended up with must be something going on with him. That's a great positive in that situation. I said, watch the film on him because there's plenty of film on him. Watch the
Hmm.
film on him. See exactly what's going on and what he had to do in order to get the like roll to his left when he's right-handed and throwing the ball 55 yards downfield on a strike, a perfect strike. in the air. Okay, that's not something that every quarterback, even in the pros, not every quarterback can do that. This guy is in college and was doing it. See, I saw one of his drills in a practice indoor. That's what they had him working on, rolling to the left and throwing strikes downfield. He's good at that. He can do that. That's a quick eye, hand, and mind coordination.
Mm.
You can go out, you see it developing, you go and you turn. You got to turn your body and throw it. That's got to be quick. It's you're too slow with it, they're gonna get you. So you know, people like to run their mouth. See, that's what they do. They just run their mouth and got
Mm-hmm.
no idea what's involved and what's going on. You want to read that stat about sacks, but you don't know why those sacks came. I'm gonna go here too. It was Burrows a few years ago, NFL. Tua had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL, but one of the least sacked quarterbacks. Why? Because of his quick release. Burrows had one of the best offensive line in the NFL, but he was sacked more. And he himself said it was because he held on to the ball too long, trying to make something happen or trying to find what he wanted to find downfield. He came out and said that, but yet that was rejected.
Mm.
See, for them it was his offensive line, but for Tua, Tua's got a great offensive line. Why? Because they're looking at the bottom line. They try line
Uh-oh, you're breaking up.
giving him plenty of time.
I can see it now. Yeah, we have
Okay,
we have
no, you give a quarterback, you, you know, we have people with that. They don't want to research nothing. They're just going to take what they think is going on with in all their intellectually challenged state and put it out there. See, I use that term, intellectually challenged.
yeah, and I think this week I used stupid.
Oh, we're doing the reverse here, huh?
I said, "Oh my goodness." I was like, the stupid is a disease out here these days. What in the world? What in the
Well, now,
entire
now,
world?
now that's a fact. That is a fact. It's like a disease, and it's spreading rapidly.
Yeah, very, very rapidly. Tell me
Yeah.
what you think about budgets as we close
Oh,
today.
okay. Now budgeting. Well, we were all taught. My family, we were taught how to budget basically because we had little. We were basically taught how to save. Now, my mom, she fed. There were eight of us, eight children. We didn't miss them. Listen, we didn't go hungry. We didn't go lacking. The food was there. The bills were there. The bills were paid. Let me put it that way. The bills were paid. You know, so we didn't. But the excess stuff, we were only able to get what was needed. See, we didn't get the extra stuff. We were only
Well,
able to
I
get what was needed.
I am thankful. I did have relatives who stepped in, right? But
Hmm.
my mom, one thing I will say about her is in our early childhood, she was doing everything she possibly could to make things happen. Like she had been married before, she had been married twice. And the second marriage turned out to be a, what do they call it? Bigamy, because the person was already married, but obviously did not tell my mother. So before she started having mental health, I would say mental health problems, my mom was super on it, like making sure things were taken care of. She would go to work. My mom was an incredible singer. That's where I get my singing gift from. She would go and do at nighttime, she would go to clubs and she would participate in what they call back then the gong shows. I don't know if you recall that term or remember that
Hmm.
term, but they would have
Yeah.
these almost like that's probably where American Idol and all these other people get their ideas from.
Hmm.
They would have these
Hmm.
nightly singing competitions And my mom would win all the competitions every single night. That's how good she was. So she was bringing home extra income to supplement what she was getting, from work. And again, I say that because once we had some really traumatic things happen in our life, my mom's mental health went down from that point. And so later in my teenage years, going into high school, we were pretty much having to do the sort of picking up the slack because my mom's mental health was not where it needed to be. So my older brother and I started working to help supplement the income. Um, and so I look at that time and I think about, yeah, by the time I was getting ready to go to college, I was a little on the malnourished side. Even though I had, like I said, relatives in the area that would come by, sort of check on us, see how we were doing. I had an aunt that was, spending more time with us. You know, the budget thing, the budget was my children are going to start working. And a lot of families, especially in lower incomes, begin to have that attitude and that mindset of, okay, once you turn 14, 15, 16, it's not asking the child whether or not they want to work. It is saying to them, you are going to work. You're going to get a job. You're going to go to school, but you're also going to get a job, and you're probably going to get a job part time to help supplement bills. Now, I am of the mindset that if you can, unless your child absolutely wants to do it because they want to gain like independent skills, right? If you have the ability to
Mhm.
budget to where your children don't have to start a job when they're teenagers, make sure you allow your children to enjoy being a teenager because
Mhm.
work is going to come soon enough. It is. So if
Yes.
you have the
Um.
ability to allow your children to fully enjoy their teenage years, to fully enjoy extracurricular activities, sports in
Mhm.
school, community organizations, community clubs. Allow them to engage in those things and not necessarily rush them into the workforce because it will be there. Go ahead.
For everybody else to bail me out. See.
Wow.
Now my oldest daughter, it was like I'm gonna pay all my bills, and then she would cut. Dad, you got $20 that I can borrow because I want to go out. I had no problem with that at all. Why? Because her bills were paid. See,
Mhm,
her bills were paid. She did what she had to do. Now, I want to do this. I want that. I want this. I want that. But if I don't have the ability I want to do this. I want this. I want that. I need the budget. I need to save money. Me myself, I just bought a van, cargo van. I'm in it right now. Um, I needed it, but I also had a budget. See, I also had a budget. I wanted to pay cash, and I had a budget. I did that. So, and I still got money, as you say, for the life happens account. I call it savings, but the life happens account. That was my plan. Okay, I don't want to touch this.
mhm,
This has to stay there in case of something happening that I
mhm,
have to use it. But if I don't have to, if something doesn't come up that I absolutely have to use it on, it's not going to be touched.
mhm.
See, so
So for that, I have savings, and then I have
hmm
my life happens because
hmm
some people call the life happens emergency savings. but I call it
Mhm.
life happened. Life
Mhm.
happened.
Right.
Stuff broke down. Stuff sprung a leak,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
now we got to deal with it. And it's not one of those you can do without things in your house.
Right. Right.
Your whole AC and heat goes, and it's about to be summer. That's not something you want to play with.
As the song says, "Hush up the windows and open up the door."
Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm like, listen,
Whoa.
80 degrees up here right now is starting to feel like 100, and I don't know what's going on. I'm like, Lord, I know climate change, but I'm like, it's only 80 degrees, and why does it feel like 100? Like, what's going on? If it's 80 right now
Mm.
and it feels like 100, then the temperature hasn't even started climbing yet. So I was
Right.
like, we definitely got to fix this like pronto.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
call emergency savings life happens. And when life happens, you do not want to be looking around trying to figure out how we going to take care of this, you know. And so even with
Okay.
that
Now I'll tell you
emergency
what else.
fund, even if you're only able to do $5, $10 a week, put something in
Mhm.
there.
Mhm. I'll tell you what else I want to discuss that you don't want to discuss. I want to discuss that broken bed. Listen,
No,
listen. For those of y'all that don't
no.
know, I used to tease Shantae and Robert. I used to tease them, right? I used to tell them to get a room, right?
It's breaking up. It's breaking up. See, the Lord know.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I was like, I remember. We about to be married 25 years, buddy. I thought this only happened in films. Ooh, child. So, yeah, let's just say married life is great. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so again, life happened. It wasn't anything we was expecting, but here we were. And again, that's something that you can't be like, oh, we gonna sleep on the air mattress on the floor. Mm-mm. We both past 45 over here. That air mattress is not gonna get it. Sorry. And I was like, we're definitely not gonna be doing this for months. No, no. So life happened and we took care of it. But it was a stressful year because life was just lifing last year. I mean, it was like one thing after the other, one thing after the other.
Mhm.
And even somewhat into this year. And so I said, man, that life happens account really works. I'm glad that we've been consistent in putting things aside because um
Mhm.
it would have been a mess. It would have been a mess. That's all I can say. It would have been a mess. And I know some of us want to reach out and we want to, rely sometimes on our network or our family or, whatever the case may be. But there's certain things in your life that you want to be able to look up and say, I did that. I took care of that.
Mhm.
Um, and then of course sometimes your family members and your friends be like, this your second time calling this month. What's going on over there? What are you doing with your money? So there is that realistic family element. And like I said, just start out small. If you've never put anything to the side for your life happens moments, start doing that now. Again,
Mhm.
even if you can only do $5 a week and you're looking at your budget and you're saying, you know what, I don't really have a whole lot of money to move around. Think about what is one thing you can eliminate for the week, one time a week, and take that money and start building your life happens account. Maybe you eat out 5 days a week. Maybe you cut it down to four, and you take that money that you would be eating out with and you put it in your life happens account. Some of these accounts I know, like with my bank,
Mhm.
they now are interest building accounts. Every quarter they add interest to the account. So it's growing itself with the funds that are in there. And of course, the more funds you have, the more interest you're going to gain on your money. So just it's
Mhm.
an idea, it's a suggestion. Just think about it. If you haven't started a Life Happens account, think about doing that now. If you can put more in it, if you can do $20 a week, if you can do $50 a week, if you can do $100 a week, or $100 at the end of the month, that's $25 a week. Start building it now. Because when life hits,
Mhm.
you can look back and you can say, man, well, at least I've got this to go towards it. I'm not completely starting at
Mhm.
zero. Final thoughts.
We covered a lot today.
We did.
Um, Open your ears and hear God, because He is speaking and He is moving. Uh, you don't have to starve yourself to be in
Hmm.
great health.
Right.
And manage your money. Stuff that you don't need to have, bypass it for a while. Put that extra money in the bank. Don't do McDonald's every day. Cut down once a
Hmm.
week.
Hmm. Yeah, and I would seriously think about looking at your budget, looking at your at your, like you said, at your McDonald's meals. How much is that costing you per week? How much is that costing you
Mhm.
per week? I know what my weekly thing is. I go out and get coffee. I know how much coffee is costing me per week, and I know the times when I need to save more money. I limit my coffee
Mhm.
budget and I make coffee at home. If I feel like I need to be putting more money to the side, I start skimming back on that one thing because that is my thing for the week.
Mhm.
I don't eat out a lot.
Mhm.
I might eat out maybe one time a week, a big meal. So I don't do like, $30, $40 dinners every day, but I might do it once a week. I might do it, as a Sunday dinner or something like that. I tend to be probably a little bit more frugal than a lot of other people. I don't do as you could tell, I don't do my hair every 2 weeks. I do my own hair. Um and
Mhm.
so I do trims, right? And I'll do a wash. But in terms of like styling, I would style my own hair if I chose to do that. I don't like to style my hair. I can. I can get fancy.
Mhm.
I know how to do my hair. So that's a bill that I don't have. I don't have extensions. I don't get braids. So I'm not spending two, three, $400 a month on braids or extensions. So I just tell people, think about the ways in which you can cut costs for yourself that make sense for you. That's it. What ways can you cut costs so that you can build that emergency savings, that life happens savings, and get it to a space where if you look up and you have $500, $1,000 in there, you say, okay, this is a good start, and you can consistently build from there. All right. I want to
Mhm.
thank you all for your time and attention today. This has been another episode of Daring Dialogues, and I've been your host today, Shantae Charles. Pastor Ben has been my wonderful co-host as usual. I want to thank you for your time and attention. Remember, light is the most daring opposition to darkness. So continue to go out and be what?
Light.
Light. Take care, everyone. Be well. And most importantly, be light.